residential tech talk, lighting specialist to residential tech.
Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Terence Dover joins us from New Haven, Connecticut, where he is Senior Global Product Line Manager for NICE North America. Following an award-winning 4-year stretch with Harman's Luxury Audio Group, Terence joined NICE North America in August 2021, where he was tasked with updating and modernizing the company's audio portfolio, which included launching 22 products over 18 months. Today, we will learn more about Terence's career path in the consumer audio business and music recording industry, and find out how he is working now to maintain the DNA of legacy audio designs and tech within the NICE portfolio, even as they evolve and are marketed under the NICE family name and new electronics and speakers are developed as well. Terence Dover, welcome to the podcast.
Well, Jeremy, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, how are things there in New Haven, Connecticut today? It's 2 days before our post date, so we're not too far off of when that report will be given. So how are things?
So I always look ahead at the weather, so I can tell you what it is on in 2 days from now. But no, it's great. It's the weather is actually quite cooperative this week. It's been pretty mild, and it'll stop raining today. So by the time the forecast happens, it'll be a nice day. I'm fortunate enough. I live, on the water and have access to all the sailing and aquatic life here in New Haven. So it's actually quite a nice place to be. I'm happy to be here.
Well, that's great. What a beautiful place to be. And we just had a little touch of snow yesterday, which I was not thrilled about in central Indiana, but we've gotten past that, and I'm hoping that's, as my dad said, first and last snow of the season. So, we did chat a little bit prior to this to kind of get it familiar with things, and since I had never met you before and was interested in some of your background before we spoke, but we didn't get into the weeds too much. I do want to share your interesting career path because you do have some cool high points along the way there to get to where you are today. I like to always start really at the beginning. What did you want to be when you grew up? Like, were you this guy that's like, someday when you're like 8 years old, someday I'm going to be a audio manager for a major manufacturer? Was that your dream job as a little kid, or were you a music guy?
Well, yeah, not exactly visualizing what a product manager was. It was either a spy or a rock star. So,
nice.
Yeah. So I kind of, I learned early I didn't want to get shot. So I was like, okay, let's try to be the rock star side of things. But, seriously, like a lot of people in the audience space, it was music that drove me into getting interested in audio, specifically, when I looked at the back of a Led Zeppelin record and said produced by Jimmy Page. I didn't really know what that meant, but I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds pretty cool. Like I want to do that, whatever that is, right? And so I went right from high school to the Institute of Audio Research, was basically like an audio tech school, where you go to prime before you go and intern at recording studios and start recording. So I started, there, and then I went into recording studios, and I was recording, sort of different artists in a little studio out in Port Washington where I grew up. And then the band I was working with sent the demo to a record company, and then the record company hired me to come on board and work for them. And that led to a whole bunch of opportunities, including, sort of spearheading the design build of the facility, recording and writing suites, right? Wow. And so I was able to, hire in experts and, look over their shoulder, learn what they're doing, ask a lot of questions. And that got me sort of my first taste of what it's like to, take an empty space and build a, soundproof room and floating floors and a room inside a room and all that stuff, which, became part of what I was doing sort of as it just evolved as sort of a side gig as I was building my recording engineering career and producing. I was assigned songwriter. I was doing side gigs, helping people set up their home studios and that led to like celebrities, screening rooms and things like this. And that's kind of what started to lead towards where I am now. But it was a long road because, things were going good. And then 9/11 hit,
Well, so it's interesting. I lived in New York for 11 years, not to brag, but I had a very little experience with Long Island. And amazingly, Port Washington was the place that I went because we had an office out there for our publishing company. And we
Oh, no.
also, we had magazines that were tied to home studio, the industry that was the home studio, basically. So it's
Cool.
kind of interesting. That was like a big thing there for a while with a lot of wealthy people getting into wanting to do their own recording, or music professionals who wanted to just do it at home, right? So
Right.
create their own studio space so they don't have to go into the city to do maybe a demo or whatever it was,
Yeah.
at a very expensive by the hour recording studio.
Exactly. And, remember I started, cutting tape, right? So when I was with the audio school, we learned how to cut tape, right? And as I was coming out, it was quickly moving from analog to digital because,
Sure.
Sound Tools was out, which became Pro Tools and so forth. So those formats were changing really as I was coming up. So I actually had the benefit of sort of having the old school training and then applying that to the new school.
Sure.
But at that time, I actually owned and operated my own studio out in Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn, and so I was at
Okay.
Brooklyn. I was at Greenpoint, Brooklyn, when 9/11 happened, and
Okay.
the music industry pretty much came to a grinding halt in New York, and it was not only what was happening with the whole 9/11 thing, but prior to that, you had LimeWire and Napster
Mm.
challenging the business model, and budgets going from $50,000 a song to $5,000 a song, and studios were just going out of business left and right. There was just nothing left. So that's kind of how I kind of had to pivot into sort of like finding some other kinds of gigs, and
Mm.
that's when I used kind of leverage my studio building experience to I met an integrator who was doing broadcast studios, but he's also
Okay.
doing high end residential and sort of light commercial R's and things like this, right?
Okay.
And he needed somebody who could, he was a one man show. He needed somebody who could kind of learn this stuff and kind of run with it. And he brought me on, and we built the business up, and it was crazy. We got space. We had a crew, and we're pre-wiring everything. We did everything from like Showtime Networks Red post production, which is 13 Avid suites and 2 Pro Tools rooms and all this stuff, to like some hedge fund guys, Ferrari man cave, like in Greenwich, to like hanging Mrs. Smith's TV. It was like everything.
Yeah.
And that was really, my first sort of experience into the CI channel as an integrator. And then I started to bring some of that into my own little side gigs, like doing, I was a URC guy, so I do like, some actors and stuff would want to have a screening room with 5.1. So, some musician that I had done their studio would recommend me to do that. So I go and do that stuff. And that was all going pretty good. And then of course 2008 hit.
Yeah, those milestones are so depressing. We just right, like the industry in general, not just your career path, but I mean, we hit 9/11 right as like in the publishing industry, we were like getting kind of on a momentum with the industry and everything. And the same thing happened with 2008, the crash. It was just like every time things seem like they were churning along in our industry.
Yeah, and so so that's when it was like, yeah, I had to pivot again. I'm like, okay, all right, what now? And and honestly, it was like it literally came to a grinding halt. It was like we had all these jobs, and it was just like everyone was like, yeah, no, we're gonna wait on the pool house, we're gonna wait on the audio system, we're gonna wait on this stuff. And I had a friend of mine who was previously in the music business, guy he recorded, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and all these people, and he was now managing the pro audio department at a major retailer in New York, right in Manhattan. And he's like, they want to do in-house brands. They want to kind of make their own cables and make their own accessories, audio accessories in the pro audio space. I think you're the guy for it. So I ended up getting a gig as director of product development, right? And it was a phenomenal experience because they just gave me green lights. They're just like, the stuff more than we do, figure it out, like go. And I was able to bring in and build my own team. And it went from doing, started with cables and accessories, windscreens, things like this, mic clips, mic stands, kind of basic stuff, to getting into wireless systems and microphones. And this was at the time, I remember when DSLRs were first coming out and podcasting was just starting, or video podcasting was just happening. You know, YouTube creators were just starting at that point. But the audio always sucked, you know. So you'd have a Canon, camera that looks like a movie film when you're shooting it, and the audio was terrible. So I started to create solutions around that, right? And that really took off for them. And that was kind of really when I got the bug of creating products, right? It's like, man, I think everyone at some point is like, man, why doesn't somebody just make this, And then all of a sudden I'm like, I can make that,
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
that's it.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's really interesting to, I think a lot of guys who have been in the integration side, and obviously your building of recording studios is pretty unique, but guys that come from the integration side that go work for a manufacturer, a lot of times it's in a sales role rather than a product development or really hands-on, building stuff kind of role. And that's overgeneralizing. There's a lot of people doing both, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
that's really interesting to hit that point when you are creating products, right?
Yeah. Well, it's really rewarding to see them come out, and also when you see them succeed, and then people are buying them, and you're getting good reviews and good feedback, and it's also learning that process. Enabled me to kind of really understand how to tell the story of the product, how to call out the features, how to make the packaging part of the sales tool, so that it's showing. And this is retail, right? So this is not CI. So this stuff's hanging on the shelf, but you want to be able to somebody can look at it, read it, know what it is, and know what benefits are, and all that stuff. And and so I did headphones there, right? And so I did some headphones that were broadcast headphones competing with Sony basically, and that got me the next gig, which was to go out and work as in the Bay Area for as a global product line manager or actually I guess they called it PAM there, as a product area manager for Monster. So I reported directly to the notorious Mr. Noel Lee, the head monster.
I was, I saw that on your resume, and I thought, do I dare bring the name up?
Yeah. Well, look, all the stories are true. I mean, the reality is that I looked at it, and it was a crazy experience. But so the first day on the job, I get pulled aside by a guy who has the same role as I, but he was doing I think cables, and I was doing headphones, which was really close to Noel's heart, right? Because he'd done Beats by Dr. Dre, so headphones he was obsessed with, which meant I was going to be spending a lot of time directly with them, which most people try to avoid, right? And this guy says, I heard that you're moving out here and you're bringing your family and everything out here and everything like this.
Oh no.
He's like, you might want to wait 6 months and see how it goes, because most people don't last 3 weeks,
Wow.
And I was like, you know what, dude? I don't tip my toes in the water. I jump right in, No. I mean, literally, the day I started, 250 people were laid off. So I come in, and there's people walking out crying with their desks in a box, It was insane. And that would just be kind of the method to his madness. But I learned a lot from the guy. He's out of his mind, but he's also somebody who is, visionary in a lot of ways, and, created categories in this business that you can't ignore, and, made a ton of money doing it. So, this is not by accident, So
let me interrupt just real quick, a quick Noel Lee story, because he was legendary for suing the the Monster mini golf company, mom and pop.
Yeah.
And you have to protect your brand and all that stuff. I get it, but it really was kind of like a road too far or whatever. But there was a moment when I was still important to him, and he would reach out to me. It was when he was doing his multi-channel music little dalliance, creating discs. And he recorded it was really interesting. He ended up doing the Snoopy theme music stuff. He was really into that, and that was kind of cool. But then he did something with George Benson, which was just obscure. I don't know why he chose George, but he knew him, I guess. And
I met George. He would show up to all the time. He was one of those guys. He was a Monster cable guy.
Okay,
So
that's what it was. Yeah, I mean he calls me and tells me he's doing this multi-channel music. I want to get you some discs so you can listen to it and all that. And hey, you want to talk to George? I'll get George on the line. I'm like, sure. Any chance to talk to a legend like George, like George Benson? That's great. And so had a very awkward conversation. I was working in Midtown Manhattan at the time, so I said, something stupid about how I was working on Broadway and that type of thing.
Gotcha.
He got a kick out of my clumsy attempt at humor,
Sure,
but
of course.
yeah. So yeah, there were moments with him, but I also saw him just berating employees when things didn't work in a press conference, and it just was so embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I had to sit in for him at CES because he couldn't make it. He was in the hospital, so he had me do his part on the stage at CES. But during the rehearsal, he's got, one of the guys holding the camera up, and I could just hear him barking from the phone. And I'm like, nervous wreck. On the stage, there's going to be 200 press people coming in 15 minutes. I'm trying to run through this freaking PowerPoint, But, somehow I got through it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I was able to keep the job for 3.5 years because I was the only guy who had the balls to challenge him, and he liked that. Like he would steamroll over everybody. But if you're like, told him that he was full of it, then suddenly he would just laugh, like weird guy, like great guy in some ways, very harsh guy in other ways. It just kind of like a multiple personalities there. But, at some point I just had to get out. It was like too much, my wife's like, you've aged 10 years and that's 3 years. Right.
Wow. But you worked on headphones there, which is like kind of a big moment for you. Because was that the first time you were working? No, you worked on the professional line before you got there. That kind of probably gave you the credibility for working with.
Right. And so I did the headphones. So there, I mean, the funny thing is like the headphones that I made was the Clarity HD line, which is actually the only line that Monster still sells. Right. And it was not the luxury headphone. It was actually a price point that made sense and a really good product at that price point. Right. Which I had to argue my way into getting done, and actually only got it done because he was out of the loop for a while in the hospital. I put the thing out, and it's been, pretty successful. Right. But I had to get out. And that's when I got the opportunity, like really great opportunity to join Harman Luxury. Right. And so back to the East Coast, where my family's from, where I'm from, to Connecticut to work in the Shelton. At the time, it was called the Shelton Center of Engineering Excellence, which is basically where the Levinson team was set up, the Mark Levinson team. For those who don't know Mark Levinson, real high-end electronics. And I was tasked with creating the 5000 series, which is basically the Levinson products. Before that were, $20,000 and up per piece. So preamps, 20 grand, the amplifier, 20 grand, the turntable, 16 grand, that kind of thing, to try to do something that's kind of half that price point so we can get, affluent, but not that affluent of people that are willing to pay, $10,000 for a preamp and $10,000 for an amplifier, but still have Levinson quality, which is, it's harder than you think. But we were able to do it, and the 5000 series did really well. Won a lot of awards. I worked really closely with the engineering team, worked closely with the design team, which I generally do. I like to be very involved with the physical look and feel of the product. I think it's really important. And I was named as a designer by the design team, and we won 3 red dots on that series. So
yeah, tell people what the Red Dot Award is and why it means so much to you.
So the Red Dot Award is it's really an award for product designers, like industrial design, the way the product looks and feels, more than it is about the sort of the functionality or how good it sounds or something like that. Although it's all kind of the function of it and the end user experience is part of it, but it's the designers who really win the award. And, I was working very closely with these guys, really, working together to define the way the 5000 looks, taking sort of elements of what previous Levinson legacy products had and put them together. And then we submit them for the awards. And, so I won on the one of the amplifiers, which has like a certain look of the amplifiers. The headphones I did, which was the 5909 headphones, won, and then we won the only best of the best Harman's ever won is the turntable, which was we won the best of the best, the Red Dot, all in 2021. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's again, it's a testimony to that, even in even in speakers that go in the ceiling, for example, there is a certain thing, about how the thing looks. Somebody sees it before they put it in the ceiling, or at least the integrator does. I think things should look cool. I like when you pop the hood of a car and it looks cool in the engine. Like most people don't see the engine, but it still should look cool.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like I think it communicates sort of that if it looks this cool, there's clearly attention to detail. Somebody's paying attention and they care about this product enough to make it look good. Then probably it sounds pretty good too. I don't know.
Well, and also you've got two customers. You got the end user customer, but you've also got the custom integrator customer who's doing the specification, installation, design. And so if they feel proud of selling the product and it feels good for them putting it in, installing it and all that, that makes sense that it would look, it would be worth the effort and expense and time to make it look good for them too. So yeah, I get that, why that would be important.
Yeah, I mean,
especially
the other thing. So it wasn't just Levinson at Harman. It was also the you were talking about multi-channel audio, and actually I worked on one of those CDs. It was done it was an Atmos. It was done in Oro 3D, but
oh yeah.
But so I also had the JBL Synthesis multi-channel, AVR. So the immersive audio AVR series that came out, which was really cool to work. Harman had acquired Arcam, so I got to work with the Arcam engineers in Cambridge, which was phenomenal learning experience as well. And there, again, it was like, well, what can we do that's different? How can we innovate and so forth? And so that JBL Synthesis AVR was the first, and this is something that I brought into the thing, was putting Dante in there. Because, having experience in Pro, I knew about Dante, and I'm like, why don't we just have Dante instead of having 16 channels of analog cables coming out of this thing into an amplifier? Let's make a Dante amp and a Dante AVR. Or at least have it as an option or whatever. And so we ended up putting Dante on that AVR. People at CD were like, what's that there for? They didn't even get it,
Right.
But now you look at CD and you see Dante or some sort of distributed, audio over IP all over the place,
Yeah.
So it's kind of rewarding because you put those things in there and, sometimes you got to test it and it may or may not work,
Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the big, threads throughout CEDIA last year for sure. It was AV over IP or media over IP, whatever you want to call it. So you definitely were ahead of the curve on that, and it's just a matter of catching up.
Yeah, it was 2021 we put that out. So
yeah. So yeah, a couple of years, suddenly it's just it's the thing. What excited you about joining Nice? And was it Nice when you got hired, or was it still kind of in a transitionary the branding sort of situation there? I guess the parent company was Nice when you joined.
When I joined, so I mean, essentially, once I wrapped up the 5000 series and I did the headphones, which are amazing headphones, I'm like, you know what, my work is done here. Like, what's next? And the opportunity presented itself to join. At the time, it was actually Nortec, they really wanted somebody, and they hadn't had somebody in the role to really revamp their portfolio. You described it great in the intro in terms of what my task is to really, modernize the portfolio. But also they had, they were kind of a house of brands. They had all these brands, and they're trying to figure out how to manage all those brands because they had Niles and Xantech and all these other brands. You mentioned Speakercraft, obviously. As well, but it was kind of, they're already starting to kind of move from all those brands to less brands. And about 3 months in, Nice acquired Nortec. For the most of the time, it has been Nice, but again, when a company acquires another company, there's chaos ensues to some extent, and then I'm like, oh, that's my territory. I'm running. So I could just stay focused, and that's how I got actually 24 products out in 24 months.
Okay.
Because nobody was paying attention. The reality is that the opportunity was there to really help define what Nice audio is going to be, or what it would be. The opportunity was there to take advantage of the fact that now we have this new brand, and we're going to be unifying these brands under one roof, that we can, build on the legacy that, Speakercraft and Niles and the other brands that we've had over the years, the technology, the patents, the innovations are all part of what is in the DNA of what is now nice audio, right? We
Yeah.
not only inherited that technology and everything that the brands had, but we also inherited all the active products that were still out there and are being installed every day, right? So we actually do have a full, complete line of audio products to begin with before I even came, right? It's just now unified under nice, and so architectural speakers, indoor and outdoor speakers, rock speakers, landscape speakers, all that stuff is already there. And then, of course, with the controller side of things, what was Elon, which is now nice home management. There's electronics and sophisticated electronics and amplifiers and Dante enabled electronics and DSP amps and all that stuff. So there's actually a pretty broad range of audio solutions already. But my job was to sort of look at that and then move us into the future. Rounding out the portfolio and modernizing the portfolio, updating it, shedding what's old, bringing in what's new.
And how do you feel about the progress so far? Do you feel like you've got the solutions that are needed for a complete offering for the home? It's always a process, and it's in development all the time. I'm sure there's always something new that you need to strive for. You can't just stay static. So, how do you feel like the original goals of bringing everything together have gone so far?
Yeah, I mean, so you're absolutely right. It's a process, right? You can't just come in and snap your fingers and magically, all these new products appear. There's a process. There's resources. There's development time, and also taking advantage of the cutting edge technology. Make sure that when you do come out, you got to think a couple of years ahead of where the market is all the time, right? I can't, chase trends. I need to create trends, right?
Yeah.
And so, when I looked at like one of the most gleaming voids of what we didn't have in the portfolio, I said we have full range of architectural speakers, good, better, bass, and all, indoor, outdoor, all this stuff, but we didn't have a solution for small aperture speakers. Right. And, the landscape had changed where, interior designers and architects and, were putting in, the lighting solutions were smaller. They weren't 6-inch cans anymore. They were, they were smaller hole sizes with, 5.25-inch bezels or even smaller. And, our competitors already had solutions for that where, you put the thing in and it looks like it's the same size as the lights. It gives them some symmetry to the whole look of your kitchen or great room or whatever it is, right? And so that was one that was kind of urgent and our dealers had been asking for. So I wanted to do that right off the bat so that we would have that solution. And along with that, it's the small aperture speaker, but then of course you want to have a subwoofer that goes along with that, so you can really, the bottom line is you're moving air, right? So there's physics involved. There's only so much you're going to do with a 3.5-inch speaker, or some of our competitors are even smaller. They're 2-inch, woofers. You're not going to move a lot of air, right? And then of course, I also wanted to fill in the gap of where the sort of what was offered outside of Elon in electronics in terms of amplification, something that was going to fill the void where some not every job is as sophisticated as what we do in the complete home management. Some jobs are just kind of simple. They're one-off. They're a couple of zones or whatever. And I want to have something. And of course, when I was doing this, when I joined in 2021. Everybody was saying that they can't find, installers that, are knowledgeable or have the skill set. They got to train them up or they're short on staff or whatever. And, sending out somebody to sniff out an IP and do a 10-band parametric EQ and stuff, it's like above their head, right? So I wanted to create an amplifier that allowed you to get sort of the solution for, 85% of the gigs in a really kind of go-to box. And those are the three products that I launched at CDUP. Those are the three brand new MPI ground up developments, and then I also did a update to our AIM series, which is called AIM Mark III. So I updated that series.
Right. Well, that's cool too with the AIM. That's part of the legacy name nomenclature, and so you're able to keep that, but make it nice as opposed to Speakercraft, because that was a big launch for them back in the day. And in terms of the problem solver on the amplification, that just is a really good sort of insight into what part of your job is, and that's to create solutions to challenges in the channel, and we
Right.
can't find enough qualified people. Let's simplify what it takes to get audio into this space. So let's make
Right.
it.
And it goes back to what I was saying before. It's like, I kind of like when I was doing it, when I was in the field, I always wished I had, like, why doesn't somebody make this? And then suddenly,
Yeah.
I'm going to make it. And I'll tell you what, I mean, what the amp is, it's the SC4 for this is the SC4 100, right? So it's a 4-channel amp up to 100 watts per channel, right? Bridgeable by pairs, so you can double that power to 200 watts and make it a stereo thing, or you can make it a 3-channel amp, right? So you can use it for LCR. You can use
Okay.
it. It's really designed for sat sub scenario, because what's really kind of different about this amp compared to like a normal dumb amp, right? And this is what I'm saying is that typically if you want to be able to say have a sat subsystem where you're filtering, you're putting a high pass filter on the satellites and letting the sub take the low frequencies, you need a DSP amp in most cases, right? So I actually
Yeah.
put analog filters on every channel. So there's 2 analog high pass filters per channel. So you can flip it one way. So you tell your installer, you go out there, you flip it to the right for the sats, you flip it to the left for the subs, right?
Hmm.
And then it kind of keeps it simple. So it's 100 hertz, rolls off. That's for your sats, right? Most of your small aperture speakers, or even your 6-inch speakers and stuff, if you can take away some of that demand on the lower end, if you have a sub already, they're going to sound crisper, cleaner, punchier in the mids. And then on the sub, it actually is a high pass filter, 20 hertz, right? And a lot of people ask, like, don't you want a low pass filter on the sub? No, you want a high pass filter, because what you don't want to do is send the subwoofer. I mean, particularly in distributed audio, we're not talking about, live sound at a concert, we're talking about, throughout your house for the most part. You want to roll off or take out the energy at below 20 hertz for the most part, because you don't want to have the sub trying to reproduce 5 and 10 hertz, and it's working hard, and that motor's working hard to do that when you really can't hear it anyway, right? And so
Okay.
why not make it crispy, clean, and make very nice, smooth, deep bass, where you can actually hear it, and particularly again when you're talking about distributed audio, there's no need for that.
Right. Today's episode of Residential Tech Talks is brought to you by NICE, the global manufacturer of smart home, security, and building automation solutions. NICE is bringing together 30 years of innovation with award-winning products to create a holistic ecosystem for builders, integrators, and consumers. Learn more about how you can create one home with one solution at go.niceforyou.com/RTT. I know you can't really tell us too much about what's in the works, because you've got competitive issues and all that. But as you assess the landscape ahead, what are some of the trends you see in the industry that kind of affect what your thoughts are? If I can keep it kind of vague and elusive like that, what are you looking at ahead that are some of the things you need to sort of incorporate into plans for the
Yeah, I mean,
future?
and I can speak to this at a high level, because I mean, it's again, part of my job is understanding what's going on in the market, and where there's opportunities. Some of those things I'm going to pursue and act on. Some of those things, maybe it's like, what, that's not our space. Let somebody else take that. You got to pick and choose your battles, right? And you
Yeah.
want to focus on where you can really succeed and actually have impact, and gain and protect market share, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I think in terms of trends, I think that, I'm very excited about 2024. I think that overall, at a high level, I think we'll see some easing in the headwinds that we've seen in 23. I think that we'll start to see some of the mid-market come back into play, which, a lot of that kind of, people were holding off. And I think you're going to start to see some of those people come back to the playing field. I think that, some of the trends that I've seen at CDL, for example, is really raising the bar in outdoor audio. You see what Coastal Source was doing, and I think you're going to see others kind of chase that trend, and you're going to see more sort of choices in outdoor audio at a higher level, at a higher price point as well. I think that you'll continue to see distributed audio and video over IP products and offerings. You'll see more and more with the wider bandwidth of, as again whenever they roll out Cat 8 and so forth and so on. There's going to be more stuff you can carry, and I think that you'll see more of that immersive audio and that kind of stuff carried over those RJ45s, right? But like I said, I mean, for me, it's I like to look and understand what's going on. In some areas you need to be because it's table stakes, and other areas you want to kind of innovate, and so really, like I want to try to sort of create some trends rather than chase the trends, if you will. But I'm really laser focused on creating audio solutions that are really part of the ecosystem of what NICE is bringing as a whole, which is essentially, creating a world without boundaries, right? And just really simplifying our, daily, everyday movements and experiences, right? And so whether that's indoor or outdoor, whether it's media rooms or your kitchen, how you're experiencing your life includes audio, right? And I think that there's a lot of use cases that people just think about sort of music being that, and I think that there's use cases that expand beyond music, that audio is still very relevant to, and obviously there's a lot of media consumption, but as well. And I think in just in terms of environments and things like this. So I think it's going to be really cool. I will predict, though, that because I think you said something about what do you think's coming up, or maybe is that the next question?
No, I go ahead and finish that if you want.
Okay, well, no, I was just gonna say, something about basically it's like I predict that look at CEDIA 2023, we introduced a few new SKUs under NICE Audio. It was really about introducing that whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
In 2024, you're gonna really see what what designed in Italy and engineered in the US looks like and sounds like. Okay.
Nice. Very cool.
That's as much as I can hit.
No, that's great. And I did have one last little curveball for you, which I didn't think to give you a heads up on, but because you are a music guy, I know we talked about more than just music in these systems, but what do you like to listen to relax? And is it the same music that you like to listen to as your demo music when you're developing new products?
Yeah. So no would be the answer. I have a pretty long list of demo music, and I'm always listening to new music and picking stuff that I just think is well recorded and sounds good, or stuff that's actually challenging. There's stuff that I have. I might not play that, but when I'm testing and listening, I have stuff that maybe isn't recorded very well and doesn't sound very good, but people are going to be listening to it. And I want to make sure it's not breaking up my system or, some weird things happening. So it's got to pass that whole test. You can't just play Steely Dan,
I was going to ask about Steely Dan. It's like the cliche, demo for my whole career.
Right. No, exactly. And so, but when I listen to relax, I mean, I've got my system. I got distributed audio throughout the house, and I've got it, hooked up to Alexa. But Alexa plays my Spotify account, and so a lot of times, I'm pretty much putting on everything like from chill out, shoe store music to piano dinner jazz. When I'm like lighting the fire and having cooking dinner for my wife. But then I'll also rock out to Zeppelin and classic rock stuff and then I like modern rock and stuff like that. The Fray and bands like that. I like a lot of sort of, and I like some of the modern country stuff too. Something in the Orange is an amazing song. Like there's so much good stuff out there. And I mean, Taylor Swift's one of my favorite artists of all time.
Me too.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And but I might listen to what's his name? He recorded the entire 1989 album.
I know who you're talking. Ryan Adams.
Adams he liked Taylor Swift so much he recorded her entire album from beginning to end, with his own thing. But you listen to the songs, it's kind of like when I heard Toney Amos do "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Exactly.
I never
Yep.
understood the words.
I know, me too. That was amazing. I appreciate that song so much more after she did it, even though they make
totally, me too. I'm like, wow, this is
made fun
actually
of
pretty deep.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
it was Al Yankovic's version, but not Nirvana's.
Yeah. Well, Terrence, this has been great. I really enjoyed getting to know you, and hopefully, do you actually then attend? You sound like you did attend CEDIA, so you'll be at.
I'm a CEDIA. I'll be at CEDIA this year for sure. It'll be a
Okay.
big show for me this year, so
Great.
bigger than it was for me last year.
Okay, well, we'll connect in person there, if not before some other place. But
All right.
thanks for taking the time and giving us such a great retrospective on your career and like look ahead on stuff. So
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Terence Dover is Senior Global Product Line Manager for NICE North America. You can learn more about his company at go.niceforyou.com. And that wraps up today's show, which was produced by Residential Tech Today, IPW, and Pretty Easy Podcasts. Please check out prettyeasypodcast.com if you want professional and affordable production help on your own podcast. And if you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watched or listened to this episode. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at our magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Thursday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, autonomous lighting specialist to residential tech
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.
This show was produced by Pretty Easy Podcasts and made possible by listeners like you. If you ever thought of doing your own podcast, please visit prettyeasypodcast.com.